Hello everybody, my name is Abhishek Iyer. I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes, where we'll bring some of the leading faces of the Australian design industry to talk about something really interesting and something very important. Today, we're going to explore what it means to hire junior designers. Now obviously it brings a lot of cool opportunities, but at the same time, we want to understand what effects it has on both organizations and teams. Okay, I'll get started here. Our first panelist is a design leader with a keen interest in how human behavior has the power to change lives. She has spent over a decade in consulting with some of the largest brands in the world, and today she heads up the design team at MYOB, making sure that the accountants enjoy the software as just people. Please welcome Megan Waters. Our next panelist is a passionate user experience advocate who strongly believes design thinking and agile methodologies work hand in hand to make things more innovative. Now today, he manages an impressive 170 UX designers, visual designers, and content writers. Let that sink in, 170. I don't know how he does it, but let's welcome Telstra's Head of Digital Experience and Design, John Lazara. Now our final panelist here is somewhat an outlier. Although she's not a designer, but she talks to designers every day. She's helping build a strong user research and design community around Australia every day. She talks to design professionals on a daily basis and brings some deep insights to share with us. Please welcome the wonderful talent acquisition partner from Atlassian, Alice King. All right, to get started, let's go with a very basic question. How do you define a junior designer?
I think it is, I'm going to go first because I got the microphone. I'm very happy I didn't sit down on it. That was my big concern, getting up on the stage. So a junior designer for us is it's two things. It's either what we call an associate designer, who we're really expecting that, quite frankly, they'll be operating with a big safety net. And then there's sort of the junior level of what we call our midweights, who have sort of made that leap. And, they can run free with themselves. I mean, still supported and everything like that, but you don't think, I've got to kind of keep an eye on them. So that's sort of for us the two rates. And then they graduate into mid and then senior and then way through. So,
what do you think, John?
We have grads right at the very beginning of their career, and then we have design specialists, and we kind of look at their technical skills as well as their soft skills, because we really believe that getting to know your stakeholders, presenting to them, all of those skills are really important. So we assess our juniors on that and then define what sort of help they need at that time.
Brilliant. So can you actually, John, tell us a little bit about the makeup of the junior designers in your organization?
We have, it's blurred between our juniors and our mids, so it's about 30%. We have 3 grads currently, and that's in terms of our perm workforce. I've got about 80 perms out of the 170, and so there's probably about 30%.
Awesome. What do you think, Megan?
well, on the makeup of the thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, we currently have probably a little bit under 10% of our people are sort of in that associate, and we tend to hire for associate product designers. What we found is that, yeah, it's a good place to then go, do I want to sort of dig deeper into user research or service design or anything like that? But yeah, we go for those juniors, for that, generalists, not, you know where I'm going.
Brilliant. I may have this question more towards Alice. So you're in talks with hiring managers every day. So what do you look for when hiring a junior designer?
Yeah, well, to give a bit of context, I'll also talk about how we define our junior designers, because that'll help with that.
Great.
So we've got 2 entry points at Atlassian. So we've got our grad program, where designers come straight out of university from doing a design-related course, or we have our experienced hires. And these typically have about 2 years experience in a professional workforce. So they may not have necessarily done product design, they may have done industrial design or graphic design, and they've got all those skills. So when we're looking to hire, I think from that experienced hire level, it's really around those soft skills that's so important. I mean, our environments are changing so much all the time, so rapidly, and it's so important that we hire people that have that learning agility and that ability to change, to problem solve, to learn from their mistakes, make trade-offs. So that would be more important than whether they know how to prototype or wireframe, because we can teach all of that.
Brilliant. That's awesome. John, do you have something on it?
No, completely agree. It's all about attitude and willingness to learn. So if you get a person who is really open and is brave, because we do put them in situations where and give them opportunities to present to executives, they've got to run with it. Just like for me, when I'm presenting to the SLT, I have my shit together. So so do they, and they get that opportunity, they get that fear in them, and we kind of nurture them through that. So if they've got that gumption, and we find that juniors tend to have a lot of gumption these days. Would you agree? Not like I was when I was in my early 20s. So yeah, it's really great to work with those people.
Wonderful. Well, I have a leading question from there. Are the hiring managers being realistic about the expectations that you just said?
Look, I can give a general across the market, because prior to joining Atlassian, I was in agency, so we worked with a lot of different organisations, and I think a lot of people might laugh because you'll relate to this, but so often there are job ads saying, we need a junior designer, but you must have 5 years experience and you must be able to do all of these things. It's just totally unrealistic. And, a junior's sole job is to be a junior. That's what they're hired to do. They're hired to come in and to learn. So it's really unrealistic. So it's just managing those expectations.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think probably the hardest thing is for us to work out which squad the junior should work in and which person as well. So we work in agile cross-functional teams. So putting them in work that they are capable of doing and then have the right support as well is really important.
So I'm going to go, I don't think that our hiring managers are being unrealistic, basically because a lot of the hiring's done by the people who the person will end up working for. So, they're kind of in the midst of it, and it is that piece. But it's an interesting challenge, I think, that we're facing at least, is that we often look to hire our juniors at associate kind of level. Can they come from another aspect of the business across and in there? And what do you do then with someone who's got 5, 6, 7 years experience in another area of the business, but their actual design skills are really kind of, were acquired in a 12-week boot camp kind of thing. And it's like, how do you manage that challenge in there and work with them to do it? And so that's where we've kind of tried to be relatively flexible about adjusting and going, okay, what is this person and what is this shape? And how are we going to make it work in there? But, there is that creep, and, you can see it yourself when you do portfolio reviews and everything, and you go, well, no, right, okay, let's wind it back. I think the thing that I do, we always try and look for, and you probably do the same, I mean, we talked about soft skills before, but I also think about that ability to understand the underlying reason for things and the underlying problem, not just the process that gets followed through all the time. So that's kind of, I think, some of the challenges that we look for, and sometimes maybe we get a bit overzealous in wanting to see that problem. I don't know how much of that problem solving comes with experience versus a natural inclination. So
You triggered a thought, and that is, I think that in order to help juniors and for us to have a realistic expectation, I think it's really important for us to train our seniors in mentoring. And because when they're teaching during our design critiques, when they're giving feedback, the seniors are learning how to give feedback in the right way. So it's not always about the juniors and the expectations on them. I think it's around the actual leadership team, around the seniors, to be able to actually make sure that we're nurturing them in the right way.
That actually starts another question in my head is, do you guys have some kind of a structured programs to train the juniors, or just set them up for success in your organizations?
For us, I'm a big believer in learning on the job, so we have a lot of frameworks. So our operating model is the designer deciding how they're going to tackle a problem. So we call it our design plan. It's roughly based on the double diamond, and we have frameworks at each gate, and they're templated. It's on Miro, and that's how they learn. And the best of the best within our team update those templates, so user journey maps or competitor analysis, the approach to that, so they don't have to waste time building their own. They just take it, and then we label those with the people who actually built them, so that the junior can go directly to that person and get the guidance. Design critique is another big piece that we lean into. We have 4 a week, and that's the opportunity, safe space for people to get feedback on the work. We leave our titles at the door, and I've been told I've been wrong a few times, and which is great, because I'm there to learn as well. And so you're creating that, again, nurturing environment, and the interesting thing about design critique is that it's not one-to-one, so the scalability is awesome. So everyone in the room is hearing the feedback and getting the learning, and then they put that into their own work. And then the third part is the LT design review, which we hold every fortnight with the digital leadership team. And that's an opportunity for us to present our work that's about 70% complete. It's an opportunity for us to escalate, and also for the leadership team to really test the thinking. And that's the other opportunity for our designers. I've had grads present at that and just blown us all away with their work. So giving them the opportunities to actually learn and grow in the operating model is key.
Brilliant. What do you think, Megan?
Oh, well, okay. Similarly, you go in there as well. No, you go. No, you. Sorry. I would absolutely agree on the design critiques, and it's kind of a critical, particularly because we work in those cross-functional teams, and so you're kind of embedded with everyone doing the delivery, and that ability to come back to people who think more deeply about the design perspective, and also just are across the rest of the system, so they know it. We also run design jams on a fortnightly basis. I want to go? Yes. Which are great, and for kind of looking at design, some of the bigger design problems, as well as sometimes just doing things like, design trivia. So that's super useful. But in the actual, I suppose, systemic plan of, say, bringing on an associate to get them through to that sort of mid-weight and beyond, at this stage we're we're in a bit of a learn, build, test cycle on it, because we don't have a huge number coming through, but we know, to I think a point coming up a bit later, that if we don't get that solid pipeline of junior designers coming through, then we won't grow in the way that we both want to and need to. And so we're slowly developing a program around that by sort of practicing on our poor associates as they come in and do that. But we work very much on at least a 1-1 support at this point as well. So,
Alice?
Thanks. Yeah, so our grads, when they come into Atlassian, they are put into a 12-month rotation program, and they rotate through 4 key areas. And from the day that they're buddied up with a buddy, so a buddy in their team, but also a business mentor as well. So they're really supported. They can. The mentor is typically like a senior, so they can go to them with any questions and learn from them. So that's really great. And then same with our junior designers that are more experienced. They come in and they're also on a buddy program as well. Oh yeah.
And maybe this harks back to something that you were talking about, John. One of the things that we try and do as soon as we can, both with associates and with just our other designers that join, is to try and get something productive happening, like get the person to actually put something out there and build it. And that's like really nice, because one of the things that you often hear in people who are starting, and particularly more junior people who you kind of are operating with that safety net and wanting to protect them a little bit from some of the harsher realities of the winds that blow through business, is you can protect them a bit too much. And it's like, no, let's get that first thing out there. Just do it. Just break through that hesitation in there. So
That's a great point. I'm going to ask you something a bit more controversial this time. What I'm hearing from a lot of junior designers is when they're applying for a job, they ask for a portfolio. And it's kind of a catch-22 situation where a junior designer goes, I haven't worked enough to show relevant portfolio cases. I can show something that I worked on as a junior project. How important is portfolio when you're hiring for people?
Yeah. So that we do, part of our assessment process is we do have a portfolio deep dive at all levels, and there is an expectation that juniors present something. Now, when it comes to a portfolio at a junior level, because they don't have a heap of industry experience, they can also present something from like a personal project they've worked on, or if they've been on a course like a General Assembly or Academy XI and they've had that work experience, they can present that. What's really important for the interviewers and the hiring managers to understand is how this person goes about tackling a problem. So it's what were they passionate about? What is the problem? The trade-offs, how did they measure this? What were the results? So it's really about that, and then demonstrating that they've got that growth mindset and that ability to, take on feedback and learn from their mistakes. So that's what we expect.
I think that was a perfect answer.
that was clear. What she said.
Oh, that's wonderful. Another interesting question is, what have been some of the challenges in hiring juniors? And it would be good if you can give some ideas of the organizational challenges, at the same time fitting them into the team challenges, or maybe the workload challenges. What are some of those?
Yeah, on workload, and I alluded to it earlier, having the seniors and giving them the time to mentor is I think part of the challenge when you look at your mix. Obviously budgets, our stakeholders just want things done fairly quickly, so choosing the right squads to put them in is always a challenge, so that they do nurture and they don't we're setting them up to succeed. What else? Yeah, budgets.
It's always budgets, isn't it? But it's that interesting thing in that business reality. I don't know if it works this way at Telstra, but you're given not just a money pool, but a headcount pool. And sometimes you want to go, like, could I adjust the headcount pool to, even if it still stays within the money envelope? So, anyway, that's a intricacy of budgets, of which John and I were just commiserating that we're both in the midst of it at the moment. But I think that there is also, I was musing on this as we're going through. One of the big challenges that we face is because, we do run cross-functional teams, and our designers are heavily embedded in those teams that, are working on various products and stuff like that. And we tend to aim for a ratio of ideally 2 designers to 3 teams. It's kind of an approach. It varies depending on, time, place and everything. But is the work that's being done in that team of the type that it works to have an associate designer in that team at the time that they are, and running for what could be, 6 months, that you want people to have a nice, relatively straightforward slide for that first 6 months, where they're doing the work that is well within their skill set that they've got while still learning and growing, and that the senior that they are paired with will have that, as you alluded to, that time and space to do that mentoring and making sure that they come on. But I think it's also really good, because the other thing you don't want you to do is your seniors getting really bored because they're doing work that was really interesting and exciting to do when they first started. Now they're, 3, 4, 5 years in, and it's like, if I have to work out exactly the layout of a form again, I am going to shoot myself. And so you want to get that great sort of balance. But that's the big one, is I think, while I don't advocate for that whole sort of, internal agency model, the advantage was that you could have more juniors coming through on a relatively, it was much easier to manage. When you move to this cross-functional team model, it's better for the end result, but it is a trickier proposition bringing juniors into it. That's what yeah.
Alice?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I echo kind of what you have both said, and sorry. And look, as we all know, it's a really challenging market at the moment because so much growth and innovation happening in Australia, and there's so many deliverables that teams have to deliver on. So a big challenge is headcount, and a junior does come at a cost. And so I think when organisations are looking at, well, we've got this problem to solve, this is going to cost us this amount of money, it's just easier to get a senior in. But that's a real short-term view of things, because, if you're never going to have any kind of career succession that way. But by bringing juniors in, it does slow down the process slightly at the beginning, because you need to bring seniors on to support them, but it gives them the opportunities as well. And we see in our organisation, everyone really wants to help everyone. It's a really great culture of, everyone wants to mentor and everyone wants to help. So we really need to help our seniors do that as well.
Brilliant. The next question is really about how do we make sure that we have the right mix of diversity and inclusivity when we are looking for youth or when we're looking for junior designers joining our team? I saw that, John.
Look, I mean, at Atlassian, we're really passionate about diversity, equity and inclusion, and we really started our DE&I journey a couple of years ago, and we've still got a long way to go, and it's something that we're, really intentional about. And sorry, I just saw my colleague filming me, so slightly distracting. But, and when I talk about diversity, it's not just gender diversity, it's diversity of culture, ethnicity, age diversity, and diversity of thought. It's all really, really important. So we're very considered in our sourcing strategies and our approaches to make sure we're getting that balance. And it really starts from, as a talent acquisition team, from the time that we do our hiring intakes and understanding the makeup of the teams and where the imbalances might be, through to how we advertise our jobs. We use, tools that help us remove biased language and make it less intimidating for underrepresented groups to apply, because there is studies to show that URGs are less likely to apply if a job has, if they don't hit all of their criteria. But look, I think ultimately diversity breeds innovation, and there's research to show that having diverse teams, you're more successful.
Spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at our customer segments and they are diverse, so you need designers to design for them and bring that diversity. We have a couple of grad programs, and one of them is an Indigenous program, and we get people through that, and it's brilliant seeing those people shine and presenting their work. They really enjoy the opportunity, and we learn from them as well. And yeah, obviously there's, as you said, there's not only gender diversity, there's just, you know, different backgrounds. It's really important to bring that in. When you look at your team, we use a heat map exercise, so we do this for skills, but we also look at diversity as well. So that you can actually see the colour and shape of your team at a kind of a 30,000 feet level, and it's really important to get that balance.
That's awesome. Megan?
Do you want, I know you said you weren't going to throw to all of us in turn, so I'm just thinking
I'd
about
love
you,
to
Abby.
hear you.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, and I think it got really reminded. One of our designers gave the sort of feedback. I don't see people like me in kind of leadership roles and, you know, those hiring processes, and it was a real thing of going, yeah, okay, you need to make sure that there's actually just the visual representation in that diversity kind of all the way through. And I think that comes out even in the hiring process of trying to make sure that, you know, the people who are doing the hiring are also a bit kind of represent different aspects of humanity in general. So it is kind of key. I mean, it's trickier when you're on a smaller team. You both, like, I know both Atlassian and Telstra are much larger teams, so you can sort of look through more of the averages through there. When we're a kind of a mid-sized team at that sort of 45, 50, and it's kind of like, okay, you want to make sure that the balance overall is okay and you're not over-indexing too much in one direction or the other, but probably not as systematic as you both are going.
Awesome. Okay, the next one here. What can design leaders and organizations do to really help bring in more junior designers into the mix?
Can I just do a little bit on this one, which was, because we were discussing this as a team, and it was that whole thing
Awesome.
of like, how do we get out there? Because, you know, we've advertised for a number of roles recently, as has everybody. And part of it coming through is a lot of people who are very much more what we would consider on that junior side of it, even though we're advertising for the mid. And even just kind of looking at those where the skill set's not as advanced as what you were originally looking for, but going, am I seeing hints in there of what they could become, that it's then worthwhile even just having that first initial interview or that initial chat to at least kind of go, okay, cool, and then putting in sort of a talent pool and nurturing that talent pool as you go along. One of the other things we think is we have to kick off back into the whole meetups and sharings like that, where, you know, there's more face-to-face engagement with people who are at that earlier stages of their career, often also aren't weighed down by children at home, so they can actually go out to meetups and things like that. And I think so that's for some of the stuff that I think that we do to encourage. And even like in our open house yesterday, which was fabulous, we had a lovely panel with just our newer mid-weight sort of designers as a way of going, like, see, it's, you know, they're fabulous. You can be that fabulous very soon. You're probably more systematic about it.
Yeah, a little.
Just systematic about everything.
I'm very process driven because I have to think about things at scale. Like, it's a scary number that we have, but when I look at the scale of the business, there's 80 teams, so I think it's a good ratio actually to have this number of people. But in terms of getting more juniors in and for us to be prepared, juniors do slow down the process of delivery, absolutely. So we need to look at, well, how do we make the process more efficient so that we have more time to spend with them? And that's where the frameworks comes in again. So they do really work. Shared learning accelerated is very key to this, so that you can bring them in, they can ask questions, they know what good looks like straight away. And then give it a go, and then speak to their buddy and work it out. I mean, when we have design critique, we actually had design critique and we didn't have a mentoring program. So the poor designers would come in and they get all this feedback, and it's like, oh, what do I do with all this feedback now? I've had 7 leads speak to me about my design. Having the mentor there now, they can kind of go away and say, well, okay, how do I make sense of this? And it's a great start for that relationship to happen. Builds lots of trust, and it gives that pathway for the senior also to learn how to teach the junior as well.
Oh, yeah, I'd just add on from John. I think we just need to be more intentional about it and make space for juniors, because it's a long-term. As organisations scale, we've got to have a long-term approach about this and how we, give people career opportunities and how we progress everyone in the business. So everybody has a role to play in this. It's not just down to the hiring manager, it's everyone in the business. But yeah, juniors, they are so hungry, they have such an appetite, to learn, and they also bring a lot of ideas. So, everybody's idea is really, valued, and I think we can learn a lot from juniors as well.
Awesome. So I'll probably have the last question now before they kick us out of the stage. What will be the effect on the industry if we don't hire juniors and if we just go ahead by only hiring seniors?
So we talked about this downstairs.
Yeah, we'll just tank. It's the seniors will get bored, they go off and do something else. There will just be this whole bunch of work that won't get done. We can't not hire juniors. We can't just wait for someone else to pick up the slack and, hire a bunch of juniors and turn people who have gone through their, 12-week boot camp into actual real, business-ready designers in there doing stuff. That's not going to happen. We are the people that have to make it happen, or else I don't know. It feels like a weird question. It's like it could just be horrid. Stop it. I don't know.
At Telstra, at least, design is going through a renaissance. We've spent the last 3 years really communicating the value of design, improving the value of designs, and now they're all listening and they're hungry. So we need that workforce coming through. And I think what's key is that we make sure that the juniors understand that designers shouldn't be siloed and in their box and doing their own thing. It's about working with people and working with stakeholders. Remember the days we used to say, design rock stars and design ninjas? Well, that was just so separatist, and it just didn't make sense to me. We really need to show that through relationships you can build great design. You learn from Scrum Masters, you learn from BAs, you learn from the developers and of course the POs. So how do you actually harness all that knowledge together for a great outcome for customers?
Great answer, John. Look, I'll come from a different perspective. So I think, in Australia, we don't have the depth of, US. US is so strong in technology, and the UK. In Australia, we're still we've got a lot of emerging, innovative organisations. So we want to build an innovation hub here in Australia, and we want our organisations to be world class and be up there with like the Google. So I think for us, we have to think about that as well. Our future leaders, we need to breed them here in Australia, because what we do see is, people do leave Australia to go get opportunities in the US and the UK. So we don't want to be losing our talent to other countries. We want to be building them here, keeping them really engaged so they stay with us and,
Develop our industry.
It's a good answer. Great answer. I'm afraid we're running out of time. So first thing, I'd like to thank everybody sitting here for being a really good audience. And then at the same time, I'd obviously like to thank all the experts here. So Alice, John, and Megan, thank you so much for your time and sharing all the experiences with the rest of us.
Thanks so much.
That'd be it. Thank you.
Thank you.